Hi, folks. It's Randy Anson with another edition of Robed in Majesty. Last week we looked at a servant that was given or shown mercy in the repentant tax collector or publican, and how he beat his breast and was sorrowful for his sin and his ways, and his life was changed, and he was given mercy. And we looked at the effects of that. This week I'd like to look at another servant, a servant giving mercy. In Luke's Gospel, the 10th chapter, verses about 30, basically Jesus was asked the question, who is my neighbor? And his response is the account which is commonly called the Good Samaritan. In reply, Jesus said a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And when he was attacked by robbers, they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and then put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for your extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? And the experts in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told them, go and do likewise. Now, when you look at this account, and I'm sure many are familiar with it, but there's a fun experience here in that we see a servant, a real servant, giving mercy. Now, a little background was this. The Samaritans were considered, they were a mix. They were half Jewish and half Gentile. And Samaria was out in the suburbs of Jerusalem, kind of like a suburb out some distance. And they were the outcasts, half-breed children that were set aside from Jerusalem, from the Jews. And they lived there. Now, quite a little bit of bitterness, prejudice, hatred developed in multiple ways for multiple reasons. And that's not for me to get into right now. I just simply want to give the setting. Many Samaritans were fearful and didn't care for the Jewish people. And likewise, the Jewish people, for whatever the reasons, were very prejudiced against the half-Gentiles. But just for a few moments, let's look at this and see what we can learn from this Samaritan. Because Jesus said that he truly was the neighbor and that we should do like him. A man in whom there was no prejudice. Evidently, he wasn't angry, he wasn't bitter, he didn't carry any of the grudges that seemingly were, or the prejudice that were indicative of that time. He was a Samaritan and had a reason to possibly be angry or frustrated. Certainly to walk on by like the priest and the Levite did, but he didn't do that. But he also was a man not only without prejudice, but he was a man with a compassionate heart. He had pity. It says that he had compassion upon him. Putting yourself in the place of another is true compassion. So when he walked by this man who had been robbed and beaten, he felt sorry for him. He wanted to help him. Compassion is putting yourself in the place of another. And somehow this man was able to put himself to the side and see the concerns and the hurt and the pain of another. That's true compassion. It's truly Christ-likeness. Then there is the sense that he was a man with a generous heart. First of all, he gave of his time. He had to stop. The other men wouldn't stop. They went on about their business, went on about their schedules, and on about whatever appointments they had and had to meet. But this man took the time to sit down and, or I should say, to get involved, to bandage this man's wounds, to take and load him up and get him to a hotel where he could find some rest and time to recover. And he not only invested his time and delayed his agenda or schedule, he also invested money. He gave the man enough money to put the man up for a couple more days while he healed up a little bit. But he also said that he'd make right whatever, if there was more to be paid. So he had a generous heart. And today, there might be people who are willing to give their money, but they wouldn't give their time. So it's a unique situation where really there's something to learn or to see for all of us there. He was, in my opinion, he was a man who was seemingly free. Free enough that what he had or didn't have, in this situation, money and time, did not control his actions. People aren't free enough at times that they can be and do the things that they really know they should and would want to do. But because of our schedules, because of our own, what we feel are obligations, we don't have the time to do what's right. That man took the time to do what was right. That's true freedom. That's where everything else comes in line, and it isn't the biggest concern or worry. You do what's right. Have you ever been driving down the road and seen a family stranded? They needed some help, flat tire or whatever, and think, well, I got to be in the work. And I realize that there's companies and there's situations and all this and that. But I'm just trying to give an example of how easy it is to fall into this thing of not being free, to do the things that we know are good and we know are right and we know that God would want us to do. Real freedom is being able to have the time to do the things that we need. Real freedom is having that ability to do the things that we need, whether it's an issue of time or money or whatever. Sometimes it isn't money that people need. Sometimes they just need our love and our attention, a few minutes of our care and our concern. Sometimes they need our help and physical help and ways of repairing something or fixing something. Sometimes they need our time just to share a meal and to talk. I don't know, but this one thing's for sure, this Samaritan certainly knew how to give mercy. He had no obligation to this wounded man. He had no obligation to help this Jew, but he did out of real mercy, because someplace along life's journey, mercy had been given to him, and he gave mercy, and he showed the heart and the attitude that Christ wanted people to have. One of real compassion, one of being a true friend and a neighbor, of loving and caring. There's something there for you and I. And I think we all come short at times, but then other times we come through. I just pray that your heart's encouraged to do that. And if you've ever been blessed by a good Samaritan, blessed by somebody showing you mercy and compassion, remember them in prayer, because more than likely, along the way, they needed mercy and compassion, and now they're giving it. Just as they received it, they're giving it. May you and I do the same in our lives, because we've all received God's love and God's mercy, God's compassion. And along the way, I'm sure he's brought people into your life that showed you compassion, that really it wasn't them, it was the Lord through them. So may we go and do likewise. Let's have that word of prayer together. Father, I want to thank you for the moments when you brought into our life your compassion and your mercy through another person. You loved us, you helped us, you intervened, and you used flesh and blood. So we avail ourselves to you, that you can do the same, just like with that Good Samaritan. You can use us to bless and to help somebody else. I don't know who or where, but I know that people will hear this. Eventually, there's going to be somebody cross their path. They'll remember the words that are said here. May we too be able to show mercy as we've been given it. May we be able to give it to another. Bless my brothers and sisters. Touch their hearts and minds. And if perchance one is like that wounded man, pour in the oil and wine. Give them rest that they could find strength and healing. Let there be the help of God upon their lives. Bless your people. We thank you for it. In Christ's name. God bless you. It's good to be with you. We'll be praying for you. The Lord help you in every way.